Welcome to Funnel Reboot, the podcast that shares ideas on how to upgrade your lead generation. Here is your host, Glenn Schmeltzley.
Hey, Glenn here. Welcome to Funnel Reboot. Today, we're talking about what's broken with how marketing services work, and possibly how we can fix it. I do want to hear what you think about these episodes, and I would love it if you'd share with me on social anything that you've heard, and whether you liked it or not. You can reach out on Instagram or on Twitter or on LinkedIn or using the links that are on the funnelreboot.com site. To today's show. There's an unfortunate truth in the marketing services world, and it's most true among big agencies. And it's the fact that cost seems to do nothing but climb, and that quality seems to do nothing but degrade over time. This has come down to something very concrete for my guest, who has actually reached a point after having been a solo consultant to question her own service model and entertain going client side because she is unable to see a workable model from the vendor side. But she's helped to open a larger and a very important discussion on how all of us structure and get paid for services. Now, there's a glimmer of hope here. She's also going to share some of the new breed of service providers who are pushing the envelope with models that could work. I invite you to join this honest conversation that I have with Leona Hobbs, who joins us from Toronto, where she lives with her husband John and Kip, the beloved rescue dog. Leona Hobbs, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Glenn. I'm super pleased to be here.
Thank you. Let's understand a little bit about where you've been on the agency or brand side of this entire marketing dynamic of buying and selling professional services.
Yeah, so I started my career at one of the big Omnicom PR agencies, right?
Yep.
And then I specialized in digital. I went on the client side for a little while, worked at an internet company called Tucows.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm back into consulting at a time when social media was emerging as a tool and brands were trying to figure out how to leverage it. So that was an exciting time to be in marketing services.
Yeah.
It was the Wild West. You probably recall. I'm sure
Yep.
some of your listeners do as well. Yeah. And then I've had a sort of a meandering career in marketing services, some working for agencies, and then the largest chunk of time really spent heading up my own marketing services, either as a sort of an individual strategist and marketing leader, or as a leader of a team of professionals such as yourself. We should probably disclose, right? We work together.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I brought everybody who's on the line here. I've brought Glenn in to a couple at least different client opportunities. So that was really my model as I was, on my own, was okay, find the work and then bring the team together, the right people together to service that work. So that's kind of been my journey.
And the journey at this point is that if you had a choice, you would head in-house. You would want to be on the brand side of things. You just don't feel that it's in you as much these days in the 2020s to be on the agency side, right?
Yeah, I would say it's not so much well, I guess it's the 2020s because that's really pandemic, right?
Yeah.
I think, I love the diversity of working with a myriad of clients. I love the vertical learning curve of starting a relationship with a new client. What I don't love is the feeling of being a lone wolf, right? I really
Yep.
I love to lead a team. It's one of my favorite things to do. And then increasingly, the jobs and the mandates that I'm most interested in taking on are on the client side,
Yeah. So,
right?
yeah. And so to understand how you're probably not the only one who feels this way, let's, pop open the hood a little bit on the agency world and what the chatter has been in Agencyville. You keep an eye on some of the trade press and the studies, and you shared with me one that was talking about, what's happening right now with talent and how agencies struggle to scale up talent when they're also supposed to be trying to keep quality high. What's behind that? What is the source of the problem?
Yeah, I think, just to kind of look, talk a little bit more about that study. It was a study of creative agencies in 2022. They talked to 200 agency professionals worldwide,
Hmm.
and it was put together by the Publication Campaign and the software as a service Deltek. And what they found was sort of the biggest priority in agencies, and I think you could interchange that with marketing services, is
Yep.
getting the right talent in place. That's the biggest challenge and the top priority. Agency workloads and workforces and the diversity of services that they're offering continue to kind of increase year on year. But for most agencies, according to this survey, the profit margins just aren't going up,
Yeah.
right? There's still this scarcity mindset that I think was with us before the pandemic, where we're all striving to do more with less
Hmm.
still, right? And the economy is in okay shape. Like we shouldn't still be in that position. And then just sort of sticking with the strive to do more with less, majority of agencies are seeing their projects go over budget,
Terribly over budget.
right? So, what does that suggest? To me, it suggests that agencies are failing to nip their spiraling costs in the bud.
Yeah.
But also, you cannot sell the job for what it costs to deliver. And that
Well,
takes
yeah,
us sort
it
of,
takes corner cutting, right? And
yeah, yeah.
this is where we see it. So let's imagine that the agencies who are still applying their, we have the juniors doing execution, we have the seniors doing strategy, and we're just gonna, you know, drop that big invoice on a client's desk. Those are the ones where they're going over budget. They some of them aren't apologetic about that. Some of them have Wall Street as their corporate master, so they know quarter over quarter they just have to, right? Like your very first employer there, Omnicom. But there are other ones that say, all right, well, let's try a bit of sleight of hand here and try to pull it off without actually doing it all. So, famously, and I think this is quite true in maybe the last 5 or 10 years, I know it's been true in places like the UK for much longer, is let's just tease the talent with future pay. So let's ask them to do internships now. Let's ask them to, work 70 hours but pay them for 30. All of these, kind of short-term measures have been pulled so that the execution cost can stay down, but the strategy cost stays high. Do you see that working?
No, right? That is simply, that's first of all, that's not fair. I remember being an intern, right? And you need the money more when you're starting out than
Yep.
you do when you're more established.
And you're not going to
And
do as good a job.
right, the agency model, which we can talk about further, right, is really about I'm going to take you at a lower rate, or you cost me X amount an hour, and I'm
Right.
going to mark you up,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
if that's going on, you at least owe that person, you know, a wage, and you owe that person, compensation for the hours they've worked. I just it feels exploitive to me, right?
Yeah.
In the music industry, it would be, no, we're not going to pay you to play at our venue. Exposure, right?
Right. Right. It's good
Right?
publicity.
It's good publicity. This is good experience for you. No money, experience, right? Like,
Yeah.
forget it. This is business.
Yeah.
And marketing services increasingly is a tough business. I think part of it is the pressure from the bottom, right? We see services like Fiverr and
Right.
all the other similar services, Guru,
Yep.
whatever,
Yep.
whichever one you're using,
Yep.
right? And what that does is it commoditizes marketing services. So
Well,
it's a
yes, and
yeah.
but it also hives off the strategy piece, right? And I know that you in particular take strong issue with this because I know you to be a superb strategist. But when people start down that road of saying, well, I'll just use execution services and eh, I at the brand can maybe run strategy from the corner of my desk. Or maybe we had somebody look at it a year ago. We'll blow the dust off that report. There's our strategy. We just have to, it's a playbook.
Mhm.
Right. And then people like you who are either pulled in to fix this or you are trying to justify why you should be there. It leaves that strategy level just out in the cold, doesn't it?
Well, it's a false economy, right? Have you ever tried to work with Fiverr?
Yes.
And how did you find that, sir?
Uh, it was so easy to get into,
Hmm.
and I did not realize that I would be needed to do 8 messages inside their platform over the course of 3 weeks and several rounds of revision to finally get what I needed, and then waiting on the person for full size, high res versions of the creative. So no, my time was not. I did not
Yeah.
spend just $5, and it was not just one and done.
No, it's a false economy, right? And so to get value from Fiverr, you need someone like yourself or myself sitting on top of it. And our billing rates are certainly much higher than what, those individuals are making on Fiverr.
Granted.
So so I think there's a real danger around some of these types of marketing services. And not to say that you can't get good work out of people on Fiverr. I'm sure you can. But it's really taken the idea that marketing services should be quick and cheap.
Right.
Because if you can get a logo done on Fiverr, why should I pay you, Leona Hobbs, $25,000
Yeah.
to architect my brand strategy for me?
Well, and there's something that really hasn't been said on the strategy front here, because yeah, that does sound, like a big ask. However, when people go through and get those services, the deliverables that they get aren't you writing 3 bullet points in an email and saying, this is your brand. What they get is you running your process, them getting many slide decks, documents, briefs that will actually be deployed to make, let's say, that execution piece at least go more smoothly. Can't speak for, if they go offshore to a place to do that, but it would at least, that's the expression of the strategy. There's this notion that strategy is a person, sitting there, in a Zen-like state and just saying one thing that's needed. That's not actually how the sausage is made when it comes to strategy.
Well, certainly, right? It goes to the how, right?
Yes.
Strategy is the how, and tactics are the what, right? And if you don't have someone with their eye on the ball, how are your resources being spent? How are your messages being delivered? Are how is your brand being interpreted? How is this interaction being experienced, right? Then your marketing is not strategic. It's just noise and activity.
So let me ask it from this angle. When you have gone into a brand and they've said, we've got our strategy all sorted out, but we just want you to, have a look and perhaps pull it together for this next, you know, year long strat plan that we're trying to make. Have you found that they have all of those decks, all of those documents, all of those briefs, all of those 2x2 grids ready made
No.
to give to you? Okay, so that's where you come up with a process, which I know you have worked on for decades, to create those things. And you have never found a successful deployment without having those things, right?
Yes, right. And I think when you're talking about what you're talking about is sort of my overall sort of strategic approach. And it is not rocket science. It is sort of best practice MBA type approach.
Mm-hmm.
It starts with understanding the audience. What do we know about your audience? What do we know about your buyer? It's quite surprising how many companies don't have a sense, can't tell you, you know, about their buyer, let alone have anything approaching a persona, right? Um, then it's tell me about your operations. What is your capacity to take on a transformative or a more aggressive or a more sophisticated marketing approach? And then, it's then a question of let's look at the competition. Are there gaps?
Yeah.
Let's perform a gap analysis and see how far we can get, towards a sophisticated tech stack, towards a steady stream of content assets, towards a presence on the right social networks, perhaps ideally towards some kind of a community strategy, whether that's, a logged in inside the firewall type community strategy or an external
Mm-hmm.
one.
Mm-hmm.
Like these are, very highly strategic things. And I think um, increasingly, right, they are functions that are figured out internally, right? And bigger the company, the more likely it is that they've got a senior marketer in place, and it is that senior marketer's function to do all that work, right? Understand the
I think
buyer,
I think
understand the touch
increasingly,
points.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it bears asking. This is a bit of a push or a pull. Um, was it the agencies, and I'm speaking of big agencies, was it for big agencies to lose that? You said that things like the strategy documents that you have, they're pulled from best practices. You've had agency, pedigree in your past, and we would have seen these floating around. Everybody's got a swipe file with some of these ideas. So I gotta wonder if they knew these best practices, why didn't they figure out how to apply this to themselves and notice that their own ability to sell the strategic wasn't going to work in its current form? And, why didn't they pivot?
Um, it's a good question, right? I think increasingly on the client side, where you see, sophisticated, you see increasing sophistication, right? If I forget where it comes from, but if 70% of differentiation is in the customer experience
Yep.
only,
Yep.
and everything else is the same,
Yes.
the customer experience is incredibly strategic and important from your traditional marketing area, which is sort of acquisition and engagement marketing,
Right.
right? Then, we turn in-house and we see, you know, the kind of collaboration, the kind of coordination it takes to truly pull off a refined customer journey. It takes customer experience, it takes brand, it takes tech stack, it takes data analysis, it takes, you know, creativity, and it takes strategy, and like there's just such a myriad of skill sets needed to really impact the customer experience. And I think that's increasingly done from the client side.
Right. Well, I think the agencies, and this is my own, bashing of them, but in my opinion, on its own, you're right. Marketing's gotten far wider in terms of the number of skills. But I think where it becomes a toxic brew is when you've got agencies that are hooked on the billable hour, and they only saw that as a way to fatten out invoices. And what they could have done is given it the real time to develop, as it should in their skill set, and maybe comp some of the things that they were delivering for clients. Maybe put those people on also projects where they apply this to the agency themselves so that the agency has more than a brochureware website that could have been designed in 2005.
Yeah,
And so that's the thing that really bothers me is the agencies, in my opinion, dropped the ball, didn't apply it. And let's not forget that that looks really hypocritical.
it
It's
does.
right. You can
Yep.
argue, oh, the cobbler's kids have no shoes, but how do you then actually stand in front of a client and say, you should make this investment when they have not?
Yeah, it's super powerful. I have an example of that.
Go ahead.
So I was pitching with an agency I was working for some consumer technology business,
Okay.
juicy consumer technology business. And we were pitching, inbound and social and, let's acquire and engage and, how are we going to get more people to purchase your products and, raise awareness and all those great things. And then the client got a phone call from a marketing service provider
Yeah.
whose business it is to make phone calls and sell through their client services. So this business called my client, put her through their process, and got her to commit to them as an example of what of their approach of what their approach would be with her clients,
Right. And it
right?
worked. Yeah.
It totally worked. Oh my gosh, we were like blown out of the water, right?
They ate your lunch.
They did, like, and so there's something to that, right? Another piece of that study that I haven't discussed is all about how the marketing services business or the large agencies or whatever we're talking about here, how they're lagging in digital transformation themselves,
Ooh.
right?
Yeah.
Does your service does your marketing services website have all the things on it that you would recommend your clients have,
Hmm.
right? And if it doesn't, are you the most biggest hypocrite on the planet, right? Like that's kind of where it goes, right? But I think there are glimmers of hope on the horizon for sure.
I think so. And we're going to kind of get into that new breed of vendors out there that maybe understand how the strategically focused in-house marketer can do this. But I first want to ask, do you see the splintering of small shops that are, in areas such as SEO, PPC, conversion rate optimization, these ones that say, all right, we are a strategy and execution shop, but we know the swim lane that we stay in. Do you think that there's a place for them in this? So I can tell you from the PPC angle what has made them make that decision, and that is this notion of keeping up with the technology. In our space, the changes that Google has made between 2013 and 2022 will spin your head. And there are only so many hours in the day to devote to staying on that hamster wheel and keeping up with it. So when it comes to that, many small players have decided, okay, I can do this, but I can only do it for one thing. And I'm expecting an in-house to come find me out and walk past the generalist agencies to get to my specialty shop. Do you think there's still a place for those?
Absolutely, right? I think one of the ways that we can fix this situation with marketing services is to specialize, and in that specialization, to differentiate, right? There are a couple of shops in Toronto that I would point to.
Mm-hmm.
One is Hot Specs Media. I've never worked with them, but they are a full service digital media planning and buying service. So, as the in house marketer responsible for digital, you do not have to yourself master programmatic platforms.
Right.
Like Google Ads is not for the faint of heart.
Right.
Right? It is truly not just something that, just anyone can go in there and start tinkering around and get the results that an expert can, right?
You
And
lose your
so,
shirt if you do, but
yeah,
you
yeah,
could
well,
learn. It could be a
maybe
very
Google will
expensive
take that
lesson.
expensive lesson, indeed, right? Another shop, and then my friend Greg works here as a creative director. It's called Mixtape, and their whole position is to make ads that people actually want to see,
Yeah.
right? Not wallpaper, not disruption, not background noise, but they have a whole hashtag called hashtag wanted ads as opposed, as
Yep.
opposed to want ads, right?
Yes.
But ultimately, it's really about scale. So how do you scale up your talent while maintaining quality and differentiation that'll keep you in the game? That is something like that is the magic that you need to really succeed with marketing services in 2022.
And what else are you seeing out there with places that have changed the model and come up with an innovative way, if they can find the right kind of in-house environment, that'll be a winning combination?
Yeah, there's a Toronto-based company called Webware.
Yep.
And Corey York is the founder and CEO, and I've talked to Corey a number of times. And what they are able to offer is a remarkable all-in-one digital marketing service for small business at scale. So you might pay $1,500 US for your initial setup,
Yep.
and then you're going to pay $549 a month after that.
Right.
And it's all you can eat,
Yep.
right? They're going to keep your social channels alive. They're going to feed your blog. They're going to run your ads, right? You can text them, chat with them, speak with somebody all the time. And
And
so
they've clearly worked out how not to do hourly billing.
yeah, it's flat. It's a flat rate, right? So what they figured out is what are the steps to achieving small business digital marketing success. And you and I could think about it and say, well, there's sort of like maybe half a dozen blog posts that you absolutely have to write.
Yep.
And then, right, it's just a matter of maybe it's hyper local advertising, who knows, right? But it's the right sort of mix of things that they're just able to bring to the table. And it's incredible. Like they have grown. They are, if I think if you go to Corey's website, he'll tell you, they're a multi-million dollar company at this stage.
Awesome.
Just in Toronto, just doing their thing, right? It is awesome.
And that's an important point there. They have figured out also how to pay people a living wage and to, keep it to at least where they're, maybe from a time zone standpoint, able to huddle. There's another side of it, and I'm not sure if Corey does it this way, but we've all benefited from the world of software development. They brought us the concept of agile. And one of the ways that, you can make a promise like $5.49 a month, all you can eat, and still deliver on it without pulling your hair out is you use an agile sprint construct. And what it basically comes down to is you tell the client, put everything you need as soon as you know you need it into this hopper. And we have some time devoted for you. But because we're not aware of how much work in process, sorry, I'm getting very agile nerdy there, but because we don't know how much work in process there is going to be, we kind of know our capacity. All that's going to happen is if you fill the hopper and then keep throwing stuff in, a little bit of it's going to be moving through, but at a metered rate. So at the beginning, you're going to see the stuff go flying right through. But if there's too much of it, the latter stuff is going to be throttled just a little, but it's still moving through, and they can thread the needle doing that.
Yep, they can, right? I think you kind of spoke to it. Another way that you can really succeed in marketing services is obviously you have to do excellent work, and you have to be an excellent place to work, right? Going back to the study, going back to what everyone these days is experiencing as talent moves around, right? Marketing service company may or may not be the first choice for somebody as they're sort of like looking for a job, right? It used to be that the client side was seen as a cakewalk. An agency was seen as, a bed of roses in comparison. I think that has inversed for sure, right? The burden that I see on my corporate clients is sick. It's probably a topic for another podcast, but they are in back-to-back meetings all day long. I don't know when they get any work finished.
Yes.
It is just crazy, right? And so if you're a marketing services agency and you're able to get great people by having a great culture, by offering the kind of opportunities for advancement that young, hungry talent is looking for, by being able to offer people who just want to do creative, fantastic work, right? The opportunity to just focus on doing creative, fantastic work, right? In-house, you don't get to tinker around with, designs that much, right? But if that is what makes you super happy and you want to build ads and you want to, architect campaigns, then a marketing service shop like Arts and Science here in Toronto, which I have worked with in the past and do know Spencer Saunders and Adam Green quite well. They are one of the top shops in the city, and they do it because they do excellent work and they're a great place to work, right? It's got to be both.
Yeah. So one of the things though that they're going to need that all of these good players that you've mentioned, I'm sure must need is access to at least some of the internal decision making apparatus. They need to be able to get a hold of that, meeting to meeting CMO, or at least people, in the management layer, so they can understand, all right, what are you working on next? What is it that we need to be responsive to? We don't want to be flat footed. I've heard that some agencies are working together with their clients by embedding them. So no, I don't mean in, post pandemic times, I don't mean sitting at the desk. It can be things like they're on the internal Slack channels, they are in the daily stand-ups, but they are party to what's happening so that they can work inwardly, and it might just be the account manager, but it's someone who can at least go inside of the operations of the agency and say, hey, be aware, change is afoot. Here's, what we need to maybe be preparing for. Do you see that?
Well, I haven't, I would say that, as a sort of sole consultant, I have had those types of opportunities just to kind of like the team is short staffed or what have you, and there's a gap. So I'm just going to be brought in to sort of facilitate and alleviate, and then, team resources are going to, in-house resources are going to pick up and run with, you know, the copy I've developed or
Right.
the UX suggestions I've made or, the artwork that I think would be appropriate or what have you, right? But the other way I think is amazing, right? As I look for my next gig on the client side,
Yep.
just if anybody's out there listening, it's Leona Hobbs on LinkedIn. But anyway,
Here, here.
um, yeah, exactly, right? So I think that's a fantastic model, that embed model, right? If you're let's say you're a major consumer brand here in Ontario,
Sure.
your budget is going to be into the millions of dollars,
Right.
right? No doubt. 5, $8 million a year, whatever. And, right, that means that you're outsourcing quite a chunk of your digital work.
Mm-hmm.
Right? In-house, you may have an SEO specialist, you might even have an SEM specialist, who knows, right? But your in-house team is really designed, is really working to bring, facilitate the work internally, whatever collaboration, whatever approvals, whatever alignment needs to be done. But yeah, I think as I look to go on the client side, I think that embedding of the client right into the process is fantastic because it just will save you cycles. It saves the client cycles and it saves the agency wasted cycles, right? The client,
That's an
yeah,
excellent point. There's so
yeah,
many times where, if we kind of think of it in the Mad Men days, the agency trots in with their, large boards, and they're about to present concepts, and then somebody whispers in their ear, oh yeah, actually that product got killed. Right? We don't have cycles for that nowadays.
right.
You
Nobody
need to be
does.
aware pretty much, as a reflex. It needs to be right beside what the client's thinking, because yes, those are very real dollars. And even if you have $5 or $8 million a year, it only takes a few of those before somebody's looking sideways at the line item for that agency. And it may not be the agency's fault. It could just be that there wasn't enough tightness in the relationship alignment.
Yeah. And so, as much as my clients and whatnot on the corporate side might cringe at having to be on a Slack channel in addition to their corporate Teams channel, um,
Yeah.
it totally makes sense to me, right? It's about there needs to be a client agency collaboration or a service provider client collaboration, and it's typically it's going to take someone like myself who has 20 plus years of experience to be able to come in, listen first and foremost to what the client is saying, listen to what the client is not saying, right? And then structure a work relationship that's going to create the most value for everyone, right?
Yeah.
The service provider should be most interested in doing rock star standout work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great work. Not
Mm-hmm.
just ho hum work, but great work. Because great work begets more work. It makes a great case study. It makes a fantastic review on Clutch. All of the
Right.
things that are going to help you maintain your services business, right?
And if the services side of thing is anemic right now, which is the case you're making, this is what it's going to take to fix it. Is, you know, come out and bring your best work, and try to get unfettered from the things in your model that have been dragging you down. Um, I'm treading into one last area here, and it's data. We haven't talked about it yet, but there's of, I'd say, an existential threat for the firms who are digital because of how regulatory regimes are saying that first party data needs to be kept in house. This is, there's two sides to this coin. Number one, there's, I'm sure, a lot of frustrated marketing people who are realizing that if they haven't already got the tech talent in house to deal with, a GA4, deal with stitching their different marketing automation and CRM tools together, this is coming. This is what they've got to do. The question is, will the vendors that they're working with be able to play in that sandbox? Will they be privy to the information? Have they figured out how they know the, let's say, the analytics stack in that company's situation? I've seen it over on the analytics side where you even got Adobe shops and Google shops, and they're trying to do that simply because it's not possible for them to know it all. And so they're picking a side and working with their clients in a leadership position so that their client lets them have a seat at that table. I wonder if you've got any thoughts on that.
Well, I think it is going to be a pivot, right? But I am an old school when it comes to permission marketing,
Mm-hmm.
right? An email address is one of the most precious things a client can give you,
Yeah.
right? The permission to contact them is so crucial. And so, in many ways, I feel like this, you know, first party data cookies going away thing. Look at you. You're the man. You've got it. That's
Permission
awesome.
marketing, Seth Godin,
From
1999.
1999, I was going to say it's old one. The first one I ever bought was the purple cow, and I got it in the milk carton. Do you remember? It came in a milk carton.
Yep. Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Like
This is such a beautiful note
there's
to end on. This is I think.
there's so much potential
Yeah.
in permission marketing, in personalization, in, you know, headless CMSs that allow
Right.
you to personalize on the go. Like, I think digital agencies who provide creative services, digital agencies who alleviate the pains, right? The pain of media buying, the pain of structuring your tech stack so you're getting knowledge that can actually be used,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, there's plenty of room for service providers to still provide great service. I just think we all need to go back and read Uncle Seth, right? And really own,
Yeah.
just, I love permission marketing. I
Yeah.
always have, right? And I just feel like we're going back to that, and I don't know that it's a bad thing.
No, maybe
Right?
maybe we did have, just a few years of ickiness with, thinking that we could, because they, talked with other people on a, soccer mom group and, shared their informations with a social platform, which I'll rename nameless, that, oh yeah, it's great. I can pinpoint them. That you're losing it. You're getting enamored with all the shiny things there, and you're not staying with the fundamentals. You're so right. Whether it's the data, whether it's the creative, whether it's the content, these fundamentals are something that, whether you're agency side or client side, I would say we all got into marketing because we realized these are solid. These will be around no matter what happens over time. We have to, make sure we get them right, because if we don't manage that, all the other stuff is for naught.
Right. And I'm excited about what the focus on first party data is going to allow,
It's
us to
it's a
do.
forcing function, isn't it? It's not going to be fun at first.
What is it going to allow us to do in terms of a personalized customer experience?
Yeah, and maybe we'll learn to live without cookies.
Well, as long as nobody takes away my double stuffed Oreos, I'll be good. I think that, ultimately 2022 is a year in flux, and a year for marketing services agencies and really everyone to kind of take a breath, take stock, return to fundamentals, and have a fantastic time doing great work with your clients.
Thank you again. And to the listener, I would say that this is an important topic that you need to make sure is, making the rounds inside of your organization, no matter which side of this you're on, to be aware of it. Leona is absolutely right about this. This is happening. This is something that needs to be taken on with both hands. But on the other side of it, there can be great opportunities. And I hope that you've come away with how to think about this in a way that's just slightly better.
Thanks for listening. Follow the show on Twitter @Funnel Reboot. If you like what you have heard today, please consider leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts.